Okay, so, here we're talking about what's going on between Israel and Palestine, or Israel and the Gaza. And uh, here in the US, we are getting an American view of the situation, which is also a human view of it. We are also getting somewhat of a Gazan view of it, which is also a human view of it. Okay, I've been to Israel. I have many, many friends there. I've taught there over a period of years. And I've also been to Gaza 3 times. So I have a little bit of familiarity with the area. But right now, what I'm going to talk about is some of the uh, letters that I've gotten from Dharma friends in these areas and others. Okay, so we all know that there's a war going on between Russia and Ukraine. So we have Dharma friends in Russia. We have Dharma friends in Ukraine. They're in touch with each other. The Dharma links these people, even though their countries are at war. We also have Dharma friends in Israel. And, okay, there's some crossover here. So Venerable Tenzin, who I think you know, he's been here for two winter retreats, yeah? So he said, he's requesting me to give a talk. He said, since the war in Ukraine, he's Russian, by the way, or I should say not Russian, he holds a Russian passport, just like we hold the passport of whatever country we hold. That doesn't mean you have a fixed identity, you just hold that passport. So since the war in Ukraine started, there are many Ukrainians who escaped to Israel. You might be surprised about that. But before World War II, there were Jews all throughout that whole section, Eastern Europe and Western Russia, and especially in Ukraine. Both of my grandfathers are from Ukraine. So even after World War II, not, the Jews that were still alive, not all of them left, but a number of them left. Some came to America when America let people in. They didn't always after World War II. And some went to Israel. And then, but even now, I mean, when I was in Russia, I met people who were half Russian and half Jewish, which is really surprising because I know when I was young, we were told that, the Jews in Russia all, well, this could be true too, that they were all, they didn't have any religious freedom, that the government really controlled them and so on. And there was a big movement to help them leave Russia and get to Israel. So I don't know about Ukraine. It was a Soviet country then, so probably the same kind of policy. Okay, so there's many Ukrainians since the war started with Russia who escaped to Israel. Also, many Russians moved there, especially since September of 2022, running away from possible conscription and the possibility to be sent to war. So there were a lot of Russian young men who left as quickly as they could, because they didn't want to be conscripted. They didn't feel the war was just, or they didn't want to fight with good reason. So Venerable Tenzin says, we have many Ukrainian and Russian Buddhist friends there. Many of them consider themselves as venerable students. Now, when another disastrous tragedy is happening in between Israel and Palestine, many of these people who have relocated there feel unsettled and even shook. Yeah. So, you leave Russia to flee to Israel, thinking that you'll have some security there. And Israel has a policy whereby I think it's if you have one grandparent, yeah, maybe one grandparent who is Jewish, then, no, not grandparent, great-grandparent, one great-grandparent who is Jewish, then you can make aliyah, which means go to Israel and become a citizen. Yeah, so people may have done that. So they're fleeing Russia, they're fleeing Ukraine because of the war there. They go to Israel, and then wham, this whole attack that happened on Saturday that nobody expected, and it's shocking everybody because the Israeli military has this reputation for incredible intelligence and, being prepared, and nothing gets, they're on top of everything. And it seems like they had no intelligence on this attack at all. Okay, so, and then Tenzin included in his letter a request from support that we received from our dear Ukrainian friend Maria. So Maria, it seems like she's in Portugal at the moment, but she may be one of these people who fled Ukraine for Israel. So Maria says, "Hi, I come to you for support. It's very difficult these days. I'm Ukrainian and half Jewish, and the news just blows my mind. There is a lot of pain and such overwhelming sadness. I continue to practice relying on the three jewels. I have no Sangha or friends here in Portugal with whom I can talk about everything happening. But we're going to connect her with somebody we know in Portugal. Back to my request, perhaps there are fresh teachings that reveal something that might just be distracting and uplifting. I would be very grateful." Okay, so, and then he said that Tenpa will immediately translate the BBC talk that I give into Russian. I hope Ukrainian too. Okay, now I want to read something from our friend Julia, who you've seen, who made during the Katina, offered the robe. Okay, and I've been corresponding with her, during all the whole war too. She has quite an amazing attitude. And I wouldn't say that this is what she writes is uplifting, but what she's doing is giving a Dharma take on what's going on and sharing how she deals with it. And she has quite a remarkable attitude because she lives in Dnipro, which has been bombed multiple times. She could easily be killed. She stayed there to take care of her mother, who was elderly. Her mother died, but not from the war, from, I think, a heart attack or something. I don't know a fire in the house, something. Yeah. But Julia is remaining there. So she wrote, I wrote her, replied to one of her letters, and she said, "I'm so happy to receive your letter and learn that you're well and safe." She's writing to me. Yeah. "I know that you and the whole Sravasti Abbey, Sangha, and community are thinking and praying for us and all sentient beings in states of great suffering and violent conflict. Sometimes I think that I am still alive today solely because you're praying for me and supporting me with your wisdom and compassion. Words cannot even begin to describe how grateful I am and how much I cherish our connection, especially now." And people really do appreciate this. You may remember that a few weeks ago, Venerable Tenzin wrote to us about one friend, Olga, in Ukraine, and her boyfriend, Alexei, just got sent to the front lines. So we've been making prayers for him, for his safety. And I pray not only that he doesn't get killed, but that he doesn't kill anybody. Yeah, because you don't, when you have when you know about karma, you don't know which is worse, and it from a karmic viewpoint, killing could be far worse than being killed. Yeah. So, so Tenzin had written me in another letter that I received and said Alexei is still alive. But and for me, it was so strange hearing, somebody say Alexei is alive. It's like if I write to another friend in America, I wouldn't write and say, "Are you still alive?" You just assume that the people you know are alive. But to have a letter begin, well, that person's still alive, or I'm still alive. It's rather shocking when you think about it, because we just assume that. Yeah, but even though war zone or no war zone, death could happen at any time, but especially in a war zone. So Julia continued, my heart is breaking for people in Israel. She's in the middle of Dnipro with bombs being dropped, and she's saying, my heart is breaking for the people in Israel. They've shown themselves good friends of my country, and Jewish people here are so active in various humanitarian projects. They are setting such a beautiful example for all of us. It is unbelievable what is happening in their country. Even if you live next to violent criminals and terrorists, your mind yearns for peace, and you're in some kind of denial of what they are capable of at any second. Okay. Yes, that's true. And she says we weren't ready. Israelis weren't ready, but actually, as a country, as a state, Israel is in constant readiness for this kind of thing historically, and what they did in these 3 days to retaliate is mind-blowing. That's a whole other topic, and it's very shocking to me that our country is not urging Israel to have restraint. Yeah, and in the past, because the way it is, I'm distracting from this, but I think it's important. The way Hamas is very clever. So they're in, and they're the elected government for Gaza Strip. Gaza Strip is, what did they say, 140 square miles, 2 million people. It's one of the most densely populated places on the earth. And the economy is in shatters because Israel controls all points of entry and exit. And they do that for Israeli safety. Yeah. But Hamas has a whole underground system. I mean, you see right now, Hamas is coming out with these very sophisticated weapons and going right into Israeli towns and kibbutzim and just shooting people down. Where did those weapons come from? They weren't made in Gaza. Probably came from Iran, from who knows where else they came. But the point is that Hamas has under Gaza, which is filled with over 60% of the population, lives off of UN refugee assistance, just for food and so on. And so they live on the land. Underneath, Hamas has a whole tunnel system where, they hold all their weapons, all their instruments, where they hide and conduct their movements and so on, so that when Gaza is being bombed on top, Hamas soldiers, or whatever you call them, underneath are not killed. It's the Gaza, the innocent people, the civilians, who are the ones who are getting bombed. Okay? So Yeah. Okay, so Julia continues. I've been thinking, how come so many people want to live in peace and joy? Nobody wants to die, and yet there are still wars and escalation of conflict all across the globe, which brings results completely opposite to what we all want. Why? Why are, as human beings, are we doing things that don't just kill the quote, quote, enemy, but harm ourselves and get ourselves killed? Okay. Hamas did this attack on Israel. You know, over 1,000 Israelis have died. That's probably about the same number of Gazans who have died. What's the purpose? What's the use? She's asking. And I've had that question ever since I was a kid. And I heard only one answer, which I've heard before, which was when I quoted Lama Yeshe. And Lama Yeshe said, "They means well, dear." Because when Lama would talk about the kindness of others, somebody would always ask, what about Mao? What about Hitler? What about Stalin? And Lama would always say, "They means well, dear." And everybody would go, what? Yeah. But, yeah, here's Julia again. These people who go out to murder others, hug their children in the morning, and leave their homes thinking that exterminating other people will make them eternally happy and they can finally live as they please. Yeah, I mean, that's what they think. They don't go out thinking, you know, I'm going to harm myself and my own family and da 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 da. They think, you know, if I do this, I'm protecting my family, I'm helping my country, we will live in peace after this. In other words, what motivates everybody is simply the wish to have happiness and not suffer. But in our ignorance, we do actions that bring more suffering in the present and create the karma for future suffering. So Julia continues, they don't have access to the Dharma. They've never been taught properly. And this alone is heartbreaking. In killing and looting and raping, they are looking for simple human happiness, validation, achievement. They are just misguided about which path to follow. And this misguidedness, this waste of life and opportunities, makes my heart weep. I understand their motives. I feel sorry that they decided to live their lives like that. I feel sorry that they didn't have access to good teachers and good teachings, which would set their minds on the path of love and creativity, not death and destruction. But I cannot do anything to change their karma. I can only change my perspective and replace shock and anger with compassion and aspiration to practice, so that maybe next life I could actually do something about it, something physical, something tangible. So that's the situation many of us are in, sitting on the outskirts of it, or even living in Ukraine or Russia or Gaza or Israel. You know, what can you do when you're living in a society where people think killing the enemy is a good deed, and where you are revered as a hero, a patriotic hero, depending on if you kill more people who are enemies, you know? And people they're born in certain places. You hear this kind of talk all around you, even here in this country. And for you, that is normal and that is virtuous. And you pick up your weapon and you go out and you kill enemies, you know. And even people in society who are not in an army, but who shoot people, the kids who do the school shootings and so on. What's motivating them? Inside their hearts, they're miserable. They're just trying to be happy, but they don't know the causes of happiness and the causes of suffering. Okay? And what can we do about it? It's very difficult. If you know some people, maybe you can talk to them. Okay? But one of my Israeli friends, I got an email from her today. When I was visiting there, her uncle and his family, they live in the West Bank and the occupied territories. I wanted to go to the West Bank, so we had a Shabbat Friday night dinner with her family. Yeah, and she introduced us to the family. The uncle would not look at me. Yeah. The settlers in the West Territory, and especially the American settlers, because some of the settlers who go there from Russia and so on, they're impoverished. The Israeli government sends them to the West Bank to establish settlements. The idea being that if you have more Israelis living in the West Bank, then eventually Israel will annex it. Right now it's occupied territory. They would love to annex it. So they put settlers there. But the American settlers, Australian settlers, British settlers, the people from countries that are wealthy, those people only leave because of this feeling of this is our holy land and we've got to support our people and take this back as our land. And these people are some of the, they're heavy duty, just, because they go there for an idea, not because they're impoverished like other people move there. So she wrote me, my friend who lives in Tel Aviv, and, so what can you do if you know people who have this attitude? She said that she can't get through to her uncle at all. And even in family gatherings, the last one that happened, she had to leave in the middle of it because she said, otherwise I would just have exploded, dealing with her uncle. Because he has, this attitude, this is our land, these people are on our land. When we were having dinner there was an alarm, that they had seen some strangers on the outset of the settlement. So her uncle, got up. He had a gun in his belt, and he went out and looked and made sure everything was safe, came back with his family and finished dinner. Totally normal. Not for me, but, okay. So Julia continues, but the point here is, look how she's dealing with what's going on around her. Yeah, she has compassion. She's not taking sides and hating one side and, supporting the other. She's seeing it as everybody being equal, wanting to be alive, wanting to be happy and not suffer. And what is happening on both sides is people's afflictions are just going all over the place and running the show. And she wants to help, but she realizes as an ordinary being, what can she do, especially with people's minds like her, Yael's uncle? It would be very difficult to get through to a person like that. So then the thought comes, well, if I practice now, and my practice is strong now, then in future lives I'll have a rebirth such that I can continue practicing on the path. And as I gain more wisdom and more compassion, and then of course as you go up the 5 bodhisattva bhumis and you attain powers to manifest in different forms and go to different places and understand people's past karma and so on, then you can really be of a whole lot more benefit. So she's saying, maybe I can't do so much now except keep a calm mind, which is actually doing quite a lot, and keeping the people around you calm. But if I practice now, then in future lives, I'll be able to really do something. Yeah. And this reminds me, I saw a video clip of Mother Teresa once. It was during one time when Israel and Lebanon were fighting, or I should say Israel and Hezbollah, because that's the terrorist group in Lebanon. But Mother Teresa went to Beirut. She's talking to these people, trying to help them come to some agreement to stop the violence. She's sitting there, and you hear bombs exploding all around, and she went there voluntarily to try and do something. And I thought, wow, would I go to a place where there were bombs all around? Yeah, I can certainly visualize it in my meditation. That's not hard. But would I actually go there of my own choice, knowing that I may not come back? But bodhisattvas do that, if they can be of benefit, they go. So seeing all this is Huli again, seeing all this death and destruction, which just grows worse day by day, makes me feel very fortunate to have met the Dharma and you, who opened my eyes and changed my perspective on life. If not for you and for the Sravasti Abbey Sangha, I too could have been at the front lines now, killing or torturing people. Who knows? Yeah. I just wish more and more people listened to the teachings and reflected on transforming their minds. Okay. And what she says there, it's true. We don't know, if we hadn't met the teachings, where we would be and what we would be doing. Yeah, we don't know. And so we can't be arrogant, saying, oh, I would never act like that. Because if you're in that situation and your family or friends are getting killed, or there's the danger of being taken hostage, what would you do? So we can't be arrogant and say, oh, I have so much bodhicitta and compassion, because we've never really been in that situation, have we? Yeah. So we don't really know. We can practice in our meditation, and meditate as if that were in that kind of scene, and practice generating bodhicitta and compassion and a willingness to do whatever we can, even if we have to give up our body in the process. We can meditate like that, and we should meditate like that. But going there, how, at our level of practice, or I should say at my level of practice, what would happen? Yeah. And I know for me, at one point when because I was going to Israel, I went several times, sometimes several years in a row. This was in the late 90s, early 2000s. And it was quite different at that time. And Rabin was prime minister, and he was quite good. He really wanted the two-state solution. And there were so many Israelis who wanted that. Okay. But then there were Hamas attacks, and Rabin was assassinated, and the Israelis, many of them became much more conservative, much more protective of their own country after that. But I know when I was there, and Buddhism was really, growing and all. I considered, oh, I could go there and teach. What an amazing thing that would be, to live in there and go with the movement that's encouraging a peaceful two-state solution. So I thought of it, but then some other things happened, and it wasn't a serious thought, but it did go through my mind. But if I had gone there, then what would be going on in my mind now? Yeah. I can't see myself ever picking up a weapon. I don't want to ever go near one. But you never know what an afflicted mind will do. Yeah. So the way Julia is using, this situation, I mean, the war in Ukraine is now over a year and a half. She's really using it to motivate her practice. And that's what we can all do. And to try and keep our minds steady. I think it's really wonderful the way that Russians and Ukrainians and now the Israelis, people are all in touch with each other. There is somebody in Israel every evening, apparently, at 8 o'clock, which is 10 o'clock our time. They're doing a Tara Puja, and people can join online. I think Venerable Sangha Kadra, where is she?
Home Depot.
Huh?
She's at Home Depot.
She's at Home Depot. Oh, good. Yeah, then she has the link, but it might be a nice way to show some support, because I'm sure these people are not getting their guns and going out, but are distressed, yeah, like the rest of us. Okay, so, that's my suggestions for what we can actually do in this lifetime. And of course, we see that making prayers is really helping people. Just, I don't know how much the prayers help, but I do know that people knowing that other people are praying for them helps a lot. Yeah, just knowing that other people care about you is something really meaningful for everybody. Yeah.